lost two good men who devoted their lives to protecting all of us. Officer Ramos, Officer Liu died in the line of duty, protecting the city they loved.
It makes no difference. A small-town police department in a rural county, or the biggest police department in America. Officers everywhere today are on a hair trigger. For the events in Brooklyn this weekend past and the unrelated killing of a former New York City cop in Florida all lead to one inescapable conclusion. Cops are targets more than ever before, and a feeling of lawlessness is unavoidable. It's a pleasure to welcome back into MidPoint former detective in the New York City Police Department, Wally Zeins. Wally, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Before we begin, I just want to extend my condolences to the Ramos and Liu family and the officer's family in Florida who had their lives taken so shortly.
When we talk about what happened, and again, I just want to get one comment from you on this. Two officers sitting in the car, completely unaware that someone is sneaking up on them to assassinate them. That moment itself must send chills down your spine, the spine of those who worked in the department at any time, knowing that you are indeed volunteers in the first place, but you had, and these people now have, targets on their back that are indelible and are growing larger every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They just executed and assassinated those two cops, having their lunch in their police car so they can be in the area where they had to be for the presence of the community. It's just a tragedy. And especially, I have never seen in my 30 years in the police department the way the police department is today with the mayor and the way things are going.
I'm going to stop you right there and ask you this question flat out. In your opinion, does Mayor de Blasio have blood on his hands?
Well, if you want to look at it as a symbolism, he does have the symbolism. He is totally against the police of what we've seen. When his campaign to become mayor, he was against stop, question, and frisk. After that, when we had the protesters, the alleged attack, he claimed alleged attack on two lieutenants on the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, picture's worth 1,000 words. They were seen. When he talks about his son, to be careful of cops, and the situation when the grand jury found that in the Gardner case there was no true bill. I mean, he's totally against us. His back is against us. And, the word has to get out. We have to have some sort of sit-down with the police commissioner and the mayor and the community, and we have to work together. Otherwise, the city is going to fail. And if the city fails, it's a big economic loss. It's just going to ruin this city.
But Wally, what would the mayor of New York City have to gain by being against the police department in this fashion and someone who does not get behind them? It seems unfathomable that somebody would do that. It would seem to be political, financial, something. Why would he do this?
I have no idea. I do know that, he was very close with Al Sharpton during his campaign. And, he has to understand that the police department is the foundation of this city. They keep peace. They're part of the community. The name of the game is to work together, and he's not working with us. When he can let protesters escalate from marching to take over bridges and streets and to have them protesting in the street, what do we want? Dead cops? When do we want it? Now? That's absurd. He should get on the air and say, this is our police department. We're here to serve, and that's unacceptable.
Less than a minute, then we'll take a break, come back and talk more. But you mentioned the name Al Sharpton. In your opinion, and the opinion of those that you speak with, how much at fault is Al Sharpton? How much figurative blood does he have on his hands today? Have we lost Wally?
No, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Al Sharpton is an instigator. He's a total instigator. And all he is doing is putting a flame to cause people that are entitled to their opinion to express their opinions, both verbally and tragically, the way this happened. This guy, the perp that came to New York City, he didn't have to come to New York City to murder cops. He could have stayed in Baltimore, and God forbid if he would have committed it there. But he came here because this is New York City. The word is getting out that this is the place where to come and get their words out. He's an EDP, an emotionally disturbed person. An emotionally disturbed person has a message or some sort of threat that he wants to get out.
Hang on 1 second, Wally. We're right up against a break. We're going to come back in just a couple of minutes. Wally Zeins joins us again as we continue on MidPoint. Let's welcome back into MidPoint. Former New York City Police Detective Wally Zeins joins us again. Wally, we mentioned Al Sharpton. We also mentioned Bill de Blasio here a moment ago. In your opinion, then, how complicit are, for instance, let's bring two other names into this, President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder, in making sure that the situations are not tamped down and that they are becoming worse and that they are now at this level of fear?
Well, Al Sharpton right now with what took place is playing the victim. And, it's just not right. He is an antagonizer in this particular situation. He does not like cops. You can go all the way back to Tawana Brawley when that case happened. And the fact that he wasn't an informant with law enforcement just to save his own skin. But the thing that bothers me is that it's too late. It's way too late. Himself, the president and the attorney general, just their comments. It does not. They're not part of, law enforcement. And these are the ones we're the foundation of this country. We're here to keep peace and order. Believe me, no matter what happens in New York City, where the police department is upset with the mayor, they're still going to respond to every single call and protect these citizens because that's their job and that's the oath they took.
But is there any doubt in your mind that the president and the attorney general both have responsibility in what happened?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They should be here at the funeral of these two slain, executed officers when we have it this week. Really. I mean, this is just a tragedy. This goes out to every law enforcement member. And yes, we have to be vigilant. We have to concern. We want to go home at night to see our families. We bleed, eat, and do everything the same as everyone else in this society. But we have to work as a society.
Wally, let's say this much
game.
For all these cops here. There's a lot of great cops out there. But let's also be very honest here. There are some cops out there that are not what you would consider to be the best of the best. You've got problems. Is it time for the various police unions to get involved and to clean these people out, to work to clean out the bad eggs, get them out, and make sure that the police department is 100% responsible and trustworthy at all times?
I totally agree with you. And I must say, the one thing Mayor de Blasio did is he picked Bill Bratton of 44 years in law enforcement. He wants this change. He wants to see that. And yes, you're absolutely right in what you say in every group, whether it's the police departments or whether it's the media, whether it's big business, you're always going to find good and bad. And the name of the game is the majority of our cops throughout the United States are great people.
Let's ask about cops now. I mentioned at the top of this interview that there's a target, a bigger target than ever now on cops. Is it, in your opinion, again, as an officer who's been there, now very likely that this has created a dangerous situation here thanks to the Sharptons, the Holders, the others of the world who have now made it more dangerous for civilians because every single cop everywhere now is going to be walking around with his or her hand on their service weapon at a hair trigger right now, knowing that anybody could come out of the woodwork and shoot them simply for a revenge motive?
Well, it's what you're saying is very true, that cops will be more vigilant. And also, remember one thing, that law enforcement, whether it's city, state, or federal, throughout our country, are professionals, and they're trained what to do in these type of situations. So they will be vigilant, and they will be extra observant. But I will say that, they know when to use their weapons for deadly physical force.
But you would say that there are going to be officers who are going to be a little, I don't want to say scared, but I want to say shaky right now, because more than ever before, you're sitting in your car. Now there's a possibility that you can be assassinated sitting in your car. That has got to make them a little trigger happy, if you will.
Well, absolutely on the fact of scared. Scared is a perfect word, but scared gives, might be the word that lets you go home at night.
With regard to one note made today in New York City, police across the U.S. on alert. There is now a note in the NYPD that officers should not make arrests unless absolutely necessary in light of what happened. 30 seconds left. Does that concern you?
Of course it concerns me. But knowing the NYPD and knowing my tenure that I had there and working in different assignments, the police will do what has to be done to keep the streets safe. But yes, you're right. They will be more vigilant and they will follow more rules and procedures. But one thing is that, if this continues and there is no communications between the mayor and the police, we're going to go back to the 60s and 70s when there was just crime would just, go right off the charts.
That would be dangerous, not only for New York, but for any city to go back into what basically was the beginning of a civil war, and we may be right there again. Wally Zeins, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. It's a pleasure to get your commentary. Thank you so much, and a very Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you, your listeners, and your family.
All right, thank you very much. Short break, and we're going to come back with legal expert Heather Hansen. I just mentioned that police in New York are now told only to make arrests if only absolutely necessary. What does that mean legally? That and more on MidPoint.